It was Rudolf Spielmann who once said that we should play the opening like a book, the middle game like a magician, and the end game like a machine. But how do we make the magic happen in the middle game? Well, just like any magic trick, there is a method behind it, and in this video I'm going to share 7 of the most instructive middle game positions drawn from master level play that help me reach a rating of 2100 rapid on chess.com. These lessons improve my own game, and I think they can do the same for you too. My name's Nathan Rose, I'm the author of Chess Opening Names, and I'm also an enthusiastic adult improver. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. I do all kinds of content on chess, so by subscribing you won't miss out on any of the great stuff that I've got coming up. Lesson 1. Improve pieces, and if possible, improve pieces with tempo. You've heard about the need to develop your pieces in the opening, but it's just as important to keep improving them in the middle game. Let's see this in action. This is Keres versus Reshevsky 1948, and it's a double-edged position with kings castled on opposite sides, but it is still also quite equal, according to the engine anyway. Even so, black can gain an initiative starting with the move g4. Now this asks the white knight to move away, and it goes back to a more passive square. But more important is black's follow-up here, knight to d4. So this improves the knight. It's clearly more active on d4 than it was back on c6, and it also improves it with a tempo, with a threat against the white queen. So white now has to respond and move it somewhere. In the game, white played queen to f1, which is not the best move, and this is the other thing about gaining the initiative. When you pose questions to your opponent, such as this, they can make a mistake. The best move was queen to e4, which perhaps asks for a queen trade, and then maybe it's not so bad for white. But after queen to f1, black can continue making threats, starting with h5. So bishop to f4, and now h4. And you can see that the threats are definitely coming at white's king. But it all started with gaining an initiative, improving a piece to a better square, and that began with g4, followed by knight to d4, attacking the queen, and white went wrong. White went wrong by playing queen to f1, and black was able to go on and win this game. Lesson 2. Worsen enemy pieces. This is the mirror image of the last lesson. Improving your own pieces, worsening the pieces of your opponent. It's one of the key foundations of strong middle game play. So let's take a look here. We've got a position from Anand versus Karpov 1991. And I'd like you to ask yourself, if you had the white pieces, which of black's pieces seem most active? Well, to me, I think 2 of black's pieces stand out as being particularly active. The bishop on c5 and the knight on b4. We can't really do much about the bishop, but is there a way that we can push the knight on b4 away to a worse square? Well, yes, there is. We can play the move c3. And now after the captures on c3, the knight has to move. It moves back to a6. And the knight on a6 is less active, less threatening, controlling fewer squares than it was back on b4. It's these small improvements that lead to eventually gaining an advantage or the tactics appearing. So by moving the knight back to a6, white has improved their position, no doubt. If you're enjoying this video so far, please show your appreciation by giving it a like down below. It'll help it reach a greater audience. Okay, back to the lessons. Lesson 3. Trade your bad pieces for the opponent's good pieces. Now this begins with understanding which pieces are good and bad for both sides. So let's take a look. This is from Sajtar versus Sabo 1953, and I think white's star piece is this knight on f4. And for black, the worst piece is this knight on e7. So if we could trade this knight for this knight, then black's position will have improved. This knight on g5, by contrast, is already quite good, so it would be a mistake to offer the trade this way, because although white's strong knight on f4 has been traded, we still got the problem of this knight on e7. No, much better is the move played in the game, which was knight to g6. Now this is threatening to come in with a check on h4, so white felt compelled in the game to go for this trade. But then after just a few more moves, the game was over. We've got this line open now, thanks to the knight on f4 leaving the board. Also this line is opened up, thanks to the knight on e7 moving. And black was actually able to sacrifice successfully on f3. The threats kept on coming, and then eventually through the moves h5 followed by rook to f5, white actually resigned in this position. Now all those later moves are harder to see, but I think the instructive moment that I want to get across here of just trading the good pieces, that's this knight on f4, for the bad pieces, that's this knight on e7, is really the value. And it doesn't take much to see, I think, that black's position is better than what we had at the start. Lesson 4. In general, avoid trading pieces when you have a space advantage. Now our model game here is Von Gottschall versus Blackburn 1887. Love the fact in chess that we can still learn from games played well over 100 years ago. Now black has an enormous space advantage here, and as a result, white's pieces are extremely cramped for space. Just take a look, this knight on h1. It's a terrible square for it, but where else can it move to? This bishop on g2, totally out of the game. In fact, it's doing absolutely nothing behind a wall of its own pawns. The bishop on e1 as well, doesn't have a square it can move to. And for this reason, white played the move knight to e2, offering a trade. Now if black went for this trade, white's position is still bad, but it's slightly less bad than it was before. The more pieces that are traded, the less that white's crampedness for space is felt. As more pieces leave the board, more squares become available. And that's why in the game, after knight to e2, Blackburn just went back. He just went back with knight to b5. And white still has all the problems of cramped space, finding it hard to make a move actually. And the whole game is worth taking a look at to see how black ended up winning with a brilliant sacrificial combination. But it's just that moment there that I wanted to get across, right? When you have your opponent at 6s and 7s, cramped for space, don't let them trade pieces. Lesson 5. Look for times where it makes sense to make your opponent initiate the trade. It's black to move here in Williams versus Ratnison 2019, and black played rook to c3, bringing the rook to a more aggressive square, and if white were to capture now, then black would gain a passed pawn and some chances of counterplay. We don't want to allow this if we had the white pieces, so what was played instead was knight to e2. It attacks the rook and it forces black to initiate the trade. And after black does so, now white has control of the open c-file, which is a definite positional win for white. And just to show how these positional victories can lead to total victory, the game only lasted another couple of moves. So black's next move was bishop to d6, and now white played one more move and black resigned. It was rook to c8. Brilliant move, taking advantage of the weakness of the black king and on the dark squares. The black queen is attacked, and, well, if you take the rook, it shows the point of the tactic. Bishop takes f6 is checkmate. But this wouldn't have worked if white didn't have control of the c-file. And how did white gain control over the c-file? Well, white gained control over the c-file by getting black to initiate the capture through knight to e2, leading to a very quick and decisive victory. If you've watched this far, it's because you want to improve your chess. Now I help ambitious adult improvers reach their goals in the game, whatever they may be. And if you'd like to explore working together, click the link in the description below. It's at the top of the description or as the pinned comment, and we can see whether working together will be a good fit. And with that, let's get back to the lessons in the video. Lesson 6. When you have a development advantage, look to open the center. This position comes from Karpov versus Korchnoi in the 1978 World Chess Championship, where Korchnoi with the black pieces grab the pawn on e5. Now, whether this move is brave or foolish depends on your point of view. It is the computer engine's top choice, but in my opinion it makes it very hard for a human to play, because after white's reply, f4, you've got the white queen on the e-file pointing at the black king that hasn't castled yet, and that white pawn which was on e5 was formerly blocking the e-file, but now it's going to be opening up. So the black knight has to move. Knight to d3 was played, and then white's follow-up is just as important, f5. Now this bishop is pinned. It's pinned in front of the black king. So black really has to take this one, and now after white's reply, knight to f5, black's got a lot of problems to solve. What do you do with black here? Do you castle now? Do you castle into this broken structure around your king? Well, it is actually the best move, but it wasn't the move played by one of the World Championship contenders. Instead, black played rook to g8, after which white has close to a winning advantage. The engine's evaluation is about +1 here. So look to open the center when you have a development advantage, as white had here, through f4 and then f5, and then black is the one who's got a lot of problems to solve, and even the best players in the world couldn't solve this problem successfully. Lesson 7. Induce pawn weaknesses around the enemy king. Our model game here is Szabo versus von Scheltinger, 1947. And the black king at the moment looks pretty safe. It's got the ideal pawn structure in front of it. The rook is nearby as well. But this all changes after white's next move, which is knight to g5. Now, on the one hand, this looks like a superficial threat. You're threatening checkmate in one, which obviously a player at this level is not going to miss. So the move g6 is played, but this is the whole idea. It's not to threaten checkmate and hope that the opponent isn't going to see it. It's to threaten checkmate and to provoke one of the pawns forward, which can be exploited later. So let's see how white does this. So we're now attacking the black queen and also threatening to come into this weakened square on f6. Weakened because the g6 pawn was moved forward. So we've succeeded in creating weaknesses on the dark squares around black's king. Let's see what happens next. So black plays queen to a3, hoping for the queen trade. Now white takes a piece and means that if you trade queens now, then white would be a piece up. So black can't allow that, so instead captures back with the pawn. And now we get the sequence of moves which sees black get into real trouble. So winning another tempo, first with rook to c3, queen to a5, and now the pawn moves forward, which is going to open up these dark squares towards the black king. Now, black takes the pawn, and I think it's instructive here to see how white captures next, with the knight or with the rook. It's with the rook. It's with the rook because white realized that it's actually the knights which are more dangerous for the black king where they already are. This rook on e1 wasn't actually participating in the attack, so we're able to take off a defender while keeping these two aggressively placed knights where they are. So black takes back, of course, but then we get this check. So black has to block, and again, I think it's instructive to see what white does next. You could take the bishop here, and I think a lot of players would do this, but instead white takes the pawn. So now if you take here, then you lose the rook, and it's going to be checkmate in 5 moves. You can work that out for yourself, but black is completely lost here. So after the knight takes, black can't take back. So what does black do instead? Trying for the queen trade, hoping for the queen trade. Of course, white's not going to allow this. Just moves out of the way, maintaining these threats on the dark squares. Trying for the queen trade one more time, but then another brilliant move. Rook takes c7, because now if you take the queen, you get the Arabian mate on h7. So an incredible attacking sequence there, but it all started with this move that provoked weaknesses around the black king. So remember this, for an attack to succeed, you often need to get one of these protective pawns shielding the enemy king to move forward. Once it does, then there's some weaknesses that you can target. And that's how you can really begin a deadly attack on the enemy king. I hope you can use what you've learned in this video to win more of your games. Remember, if you'd like to improve your chess, click the link in the description below. I help chess players to reach their goals in the game, so by clicking the link we can find out if working together will be a good fit. Until next time then, subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this one. Do drop a like down below if you enjoyed watching. I'm Nathan Rose. Bye for now.